Welcome to The Denial Machine, Episode 4, The Machine Fights Back. Sarah woke to the sound of her phone, buzzing insistently on the nightstand. The display showed 6:23 a.m. and an unknown number with a Chicago area code. For a moment, she considered letting it go to voicemail, but something about the early morning timing made her answer. Sarah Chen. Ems. Chen, this is Detective Mike Torres with Chicago PD. I'm calling because we've had a report of suspicious activity around your building. A resident reported seeing someone attempting to access the parking garage late last night. We'd like to speak with you about whether you've noticed anything unusual recently. Sarah sat up in bed, instantly alert. What kind of suspicious activity? Someone was seen photographing license plates and attempting to access resident mailboxes. The description was vague, but we're checking with all residents as a precaution. Have you noticed anyone following you or taking unusual interest in your activities? No, I haven't noticed anything, Sarah lied, though she realized she had been watching her surroundings more carefully since her suspension from MetLife. Do you think it's related to building security issues? Could be. Sometimes these things are random. Sometimes they're more targeted. Ms. Chen, have you had any disputes with neighbors, employment issues, anything that might make you a person of interest to someone? The question was innocent enough, but something in Detective Torres's tone suggested he already knew more than he was letting on. Sarah wondered if MetLife had contacted police, perhaps claiming she had stolen company property or violated computer security protocols. Detective Torres, can I ask who reported this suspicious activity? I'm not at liberty to share that information, ma'am. But I would recommend being aware of your surroundings and reporting anything unusual. Do you have a secure place to keep important documents, valuables, that sort of thing? Yes, I do. Good. Ms. Chen, is there anything else you'd like to tell me about your current situation? Anyone who might have reason to be gathering information about you? Sarah realized this call was more than a routine follow-up on building security. Someone was fishing for information, trying to understand what she knew and who she might have talked to. Detective, can you give me your badge number and the report number for this incident? I'd like to file my own report about the suspicious activity. There was a pause. Of course, ma'am. Badge 4471, Incident Report 2024 CH8847. You can call the main number and reference that if you need to follow up. After hanging up, Sarah immediately called the Chicago Police non-emergency line and asked about Incident Report 2024 CH8847. After being transferred twice, she was told no such report number existed in their system. The fake police call meant MetLife was escalating their strategy beyond corporate security measures. They were using private investigators, sophisticated enough to impersonate law enforcement, gathering intelligence about her personal life, her routines, her vulnerabilities. Sarah got dressed quickly and walked to her bedroom window. The parking garage was visible from her second-floor apartment, and she spent several minutes examining the area for anything unusual. She didn't see anyone watching the building, but that didn't mean surveillance wasn't happening. Her phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Sarah, your investigation ends now, or your daughter learns what kind of person her mother really is. Stop while you can still protect your family. Sarah stared at the message, her hands trembling with rage. Threatening her was one thing. Threatening Jamie was crossing a line that transformed her fear into fury. She screenshotted the message and immediately forwarded it to Elena Vasquez with a note. They're escalating. We need to move faster. Elena called within 10 minutes. Sarah, are you and Jamie safe right now? Jamie's still asleep. I think we're okay for now, but Elena, they're using private investigators. Someone called pretending to be Chicago police, asking about suspicious activity in my building. This is standard corporate crisis management. They're building a profile of your personal life, looking for anything they can use to discredit you or pressure you into silence. Sarah, do you have somewhere you and Jamie can stay temporarily? Friends, family outside Chicago? My sister lives in Milwaukee, but Elena, I'm not running. If I disappear now, it validates whatever story they're planning to tell about me. I understand, but your safety comes first. These private investigation firms play hardball, and they have resources we don't. Sarah made coffee and considered her options. Running to Milwaukee would protect Jamie, but would also give MetLife time to destroy evidence, intimidate other potential witnesses, and craft their narrative without opposition. Staying in Chicago meant exposing herself and Jamie to escalating pressure, but it also meant being available to fight back. Elena, how long before your story is ready to publish? I'm still fact-checking and reaching out to other sources. The priority protocols documents are incredibly damaging, but I need to verify some of the financial projections and get comments from other affected patients. Probably another week, maybe 10 days. Can we accelerate that timeline? Because I don't think we have 10 days before they find a way to neutralize me completely. Sarah, good journalism takes time. If I rush this and get something wrong, MetLife's lawyers will use those errors to discredit the entire story. We get one shot at this. It has to be bulletproof. After Elena hung up, Sarah spent 20 minutes creating backup copies of all her evidence, storing them in multiple secure locations. If something happened to her, she wanted to ensure Elena would still have access to the priority protocols documents and claim files. At 8:30, Jamie emerged from her bedroom, already dressed for school but moving sluggishly. Mom, why were you on the phone so early? And why do you look like you're planning for war? Sarah looked at her daughter, trying to decide how much truth a 14-year-old could handle. Honey, the work situation I mentioned is getting more complicated. Some people aren't happy about the questions I've been asking. Are we in danger? The question was direct and mature, typical of Jamie's approach to serious topics. Sarah decided her daughter deserved an honest answer. We might be. Not physical danger, but people might try to make things difficult for us. I need you to be extra careful about who you talk to and what you share about our family. If anyone approaches you asking questions about me or my work, don't engage with them. Just walk away and call me immediately. Jamie nodded solemnly. Mom, are you doing something that's going to change everything? Yes, I think I am. Is it worth it? Sarah thought about Dorothy Martinez, sitting in the hospital financial office with her stack of confusing paperwork. She thought about the 67 other cases she had identified, each representing a real person whose legitimate medical needs had been systematically denied. I hope so, honey. I really hope so. After dropping Jamie at school, Sarah drove to Northwestern Memorial Hospital to check on Dorothy Martinez's appeal process. She wanted to ensure the elderly woman had properly submitted her paperwork and understood her options for fighting MetLife's denial. But when Sarah arrived at the hospital's patient advocacy office, she learned that Dorothy Martinez had withdrawn her appeal the previous afternoon. She seemed very upset. The patient advocate explained. She said someone from her insurance company had called to explain that pursuing the appeal could affect her other coverage. She was afraid they might cancel her policy entirely. Sarah felt sick. MetLife was pressuring patients directly, using their dependence on insurance coverage as leverage to prevent appeals. Dorothy Martinez needed chemotherapy, but she also needed coverage for her diabetes medications, her blood pressure treatments, her regular doctor visits. The threat of losing everything had forced her to accept the denial of her cancer treatment. Did Mrs. Martinez say who called her from the insurance company? She mentioned someone from the legal department. They told her that filing appeals could be seen as challenging the company's medical expertise, and that companies don't like to continue relationships with customers who question their professional judgment. Sarah drove directly to Dorothy Martinez's South Side address, a small frame house with a carefully maintained garden and religious statues in the front yard. Dorothy answered the door looking frailer than she had appeared in the hospital, her face drawn with the exhaustion of someone fighting cancer without proper treatment. Chen, I can't talk to you anymore. They told me that insurance companies share information with each other, and if I'm seen as a problem customer, no one else will cover me. Mrs. Martinez, they're intimidating you. They're using your fear to prevent you from getting the medical care you've paid for. But what if they're right? What if I lose my coverage entirely? I can't afford to pay for my medications without insurance. I can't afford to see my doctors. Sarah looked at the elderly woman, seeing the impossible choice MetLife had forced on her. Accept the denial of life-saving cancer treatment, or risk losing all medical coverage. It was a cruel calculation that exploited patience, vulnerability, and dependence on the insurance system. Mrs. Martinez, can I ask you to do one thing? Can I record you telling your story? You don't have to use your real name, and you don't have to pursue the appeal. But if other people could hear what MetLife has done to you, it might help prevent them from doing the same thing to other patients. Dorothy considered this for several minutes. Will it cause more trouble for me? I can't promise it won't. But Mrs. Martinez, if we don't speak up about what they're doing, they'll keep doing it to other people, other grandmothers with cancer, other families who depend on their insurance coverage. Dorothy Martinez agreed to the recording, and for 20 minutes, she told her story in heartbreaking detail. The initial diagnosis, the doctor's treatment recommendations, the confidence that her insurance would cover standard care. Then the denial letter, with its incomprehensible language about experimental treatments and demographic profiles. The fear, the confusion, the pressure to withdraw her appeal. I paid premiums for 43 years, Dorothy said, her voice barely above a whisper. 43 years of never missing a payment, never filing big claims, trusting that the insurance would be there when I needed it. And now, when I need it most, they've decided I'm not worth the cost. Sarah drove home with Dorothy's recorded testimony, another piece of evidence for Elena's investigation. But she also drove home with the weight of understanding how effectively MetLife was silencing opposition through intimidation and economic pressure. At 3 o'clock, her phone rang. The caller ID showed Marcus Rivera's name. Sarah, I need to see you. Can you meet me at Millennium Park in an hour? Marcus, are you sure that's a good idea? I'm suspended, remember? That's why we need to meet away from the office. Sarah, they're cleaning house. Everyone who had access to priority protocols is being transferred, demoted, or pushed out. I probably have 48 hours before they find an excuse to get rid of me. Sarah met Marcus at the Crown Fountain, where the noise of children playing would mask their conversation from any surveillance equipment. Marcus looked haggard, like a man who hadn't slept in days. They called me in yesterday, Marcus said without preamble. Corporate security, legal department. 2 people I'd never seen before, who didn't introduce themselves. They wanted to know who I'd talked to about sensitive company procedures. What did you tell them? I told them I'd discussed your research concerns with you and advised you to focus on your regular caseload. That's all. But Sarah, they knew about the priority protocols folder. Sarah's blood ran cold. How could they know? I don't know. Maybe they have keystroke logging on executive computers. Maybe someone saw me accessing the files. Maybe they've been monitoring everyone who works with that material. Marcus, are you in danger? We're all in danger. You, me, anyone who knows the truth about what they've been doing. But Sarah, I need to tell you something else. The priority protocols aren't just about saving money on claims. What do you mean? Marcus looked around nervously, making sure no one was close enough to overhear. The demographic targeting isn't random. It's designed to eliminate expensive patient populations systematically. Elderly patients who need ongoing care. Chronically ill patients who require long-term treatment. The goal isn't just to deny individual claims. It's to make insurance coverage so unreliable for certain populations that they stop buying policies entirely. Sarah felt the world spinning. You're saying they're trying to eliminate coverage for people who actually need health care. I'm saying they're engineering a system where only healthy, profitable customers maintain coverage, while expensive patients are systematically driven out of the insurance market entirely. Marcus, that's not healthcare insurance. That's legalized discrimination. That's why they're so desperate to keep this quiet. If the public understood what priority protocols really represents, it wouldn't just destroy MetLife. It would call into question the entire private insurance model. Marcus handed Sarah a small flash drive. These are internal communications from the executive level. Strategy memos, actuarial reports, implementation timelines. Sarah, this goes all the way to the CEO level. Thomas Blackwood personally approved the Priority Protocols Initiative. Why are you giving this to me, Marcus? Why now? Because yesterday, they offered me a promotion to regional director, contingent on my signing an expanded confidentiality agreement and relocating to Phoenix immediately. They're buying my silence and removing me from Chicago before your story breaks. Are you going to take the promotion? Marcus was quiet for a long time, watching children play in the fountain. I have 2 kids in college, Sarah. My wife has been out of work for 6 months. The promotion comes with a $50,000 raise and guaranteed employment for 5 years. But I've seen what staying quiet costs. I've watched them systematically deny care to people who desperately need it. I've been part of a system that treats human suffering as an acceptable cost of doing business. So what are you going to do? I'm going to Phoenix. And I'm going to live with the fact that I chose financial security over moral courage. Marcus stood to leave, then turned back to Sarah. But before I go, I'm going to make sure someone braver than me has everything she needs to expose the truth. That flash drive contains enough evidence to destroy MetLife's executive leadership and possibly trigger federal criminal investigations. Marcus, if you testify about what you know... I can't, Sarah. I wish I could, but I can't. My family depends on me, and I've already risked too much by giving you this information. After Marcus left, Sarah sat by the Crown Fountain for another hour, processing what she had learned. The priority protocols weren't just about corporate cost-cutting. They represented a systematic strategy to eliminate healthcare coverage for the people who needed it most. It was social engineering disguised as business optimization, discrimination packaged as actuarial analysis. The flash drive in her pocket contained evidence that could expose the conspiracy at the highest levels of MetLife, but Marcus's decision to take the promotion and relocate reminded her of the personal costs involved in fighting corporate power. He wasn't a coward. He was a father and husband who had calculated what he could afford to sacrifice and what he couldn't. Sarah understood his choice, even as she made a different one. That evening, after Jamie went to bed, Sarah uploaded the contents of Marcus's flash drive to her secure server. The executive communications were even more damaging than the priority protocols folder. Thomas Blackwood, MetLife's CEO, had personally directed the development of algorithms designed to identify and eliminate unprofitable patient populations from insurance coverage. In one memo, Blackwood wrote, "Our long-term viability depends on achieving optimal customer segmentation. We cannot continue to subsidize healthcare costs for populations that generate negative returns on investment. Priority protocols represents a sophisticated approach to risk management that will restore our competitive position while maintaining plausible deniability regarding individual claim decisions." Another communication from the chief financial officer outlined the financial projections. Full implementation of priority protocols is expected to generate $2.4 billion in annual savings through reduced claim payouts and selective customer attrition. Legal analysis suggests minimal regulatory risk if implementation is properly documented and managed. Sarah realized she was holding evidence of a criminal conspiracy that went far beyond insurance fraud. MetLife's leadership had deliberately designed a system to deny healthcare coverage to vulnerable populations while hiding their intent behind sophisticated algorithms and corporate euphemisms. She encrypted the executive communications and prepared to send them to Elena Vasquez, knowing that this evidence would probably make her story the most important corporate exposé of the decade. But first, she called Elena to warn her about the escalation in MetLife's counter-strategy. "Elena, they're using private investigators, fake police calls, and direct patient intimidation. They threatened Jamie today, and they pressured Dorothy Martinez into withdrawing her appeal. Sarah, I think you should seriously consider getting you and Jamie to a safe location until this story breaks. What if I told you I have evidence that goes directly to MetLife's CEO? Executive communications that prove priority protocols was designed to eliminate healthcare coverage for expensive patient populations?" Elena was quiet for several seconds. "Sarah, if you have that kind of evidence, we're not just talking about insurance fraud anymore. We're talking about systematic discrimination that could trigger federal civil rights investigations. Which means they have even more reason to stop us from publishing the story. Which means we need to move faster and be more careful. Sarah, send me everything you have. I'm going to work through the night to get this story ready. And I think you should call an attorney tomorrow morning." "An attorney?" "Because when this story breaks, MetLife is going to come at you with everything they have. Criminal charges, civil lawsuits, character assassination. They're going to try to destroy you completely. You need legal protection before that happens." After sending the executive communications to Elena, Sarah sat in her darkened kitchen, looking out at the Chicago skyline. Somewhere in those towers of glass and steel, corporate executives were probably meeting in crisis management sessions, planning their strategy to discredit her and suppress the story that could expose their conspiracy. But for the first time since discovering the priority protocols, Sarah felt like she had enough evidence to win the fight. Marcus Rivera had sacrificed his moral credibility for financial security, but in doing so, he had given her the weapons needed to hold MetLife accountable for systematically denying healthcare coverage to vulnerable populations. Tomorrow, Elena would begin the final push to publish the story that could bring down one of the country's largest insurance companies. Tonight, Sarah Chen went to bed knowing she had committed herself to a battle that would determine whether corporate power or individual courage would ultimately prevail. Thank you for listening to Episode 4 of The Denial Machine. Please find Episode 5 in the description below.